Hello and welcome to Northwest Knitting. My name is Kathy and this is my YouTube channel where I talk about my knitting, fibers I'm enjoying, and my goals to make sustainable clothing. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm coming to you from Eugene, Oregon, where we have just had about half an inch of snow, but lots of ice. And I can hear, I'm out in my little studio where it is pretty chilly. This is my first episode of the new year, so Happy New Year to you, and I hope you're doing well. I know there are storms all over the place, all over the country, and I'm hearing about cold snaps outside of the country as well, and I hope everyone is surviving and doing okay and enjoying your knitting. So what I'm going to talk to you about today is I'm going to tell you about what I'm wearing, which is my new finished object, and a little whip that I have going. And then I want to talk a little bit about my intentions for the new year. And I have a couple book reviews, including 2 knitting related books. So come join me. I have a little cup of chai tea, and I'm going to try and stay warm out here. I have a shawl out here somewhere too, so we might resort to that. So, and it's so cold, I'm putting a little cover over it. So what I'm wearing is sweater that I made from the Olivia Bell Cardigan by Nora Gaughan. It's written for DK weight yarn, and her design is to have a main color with 3 or 4 contrasting colors, and that is the picture on my crummy printer. So and her design has some really wide bell sleeves. Now I heavily modified my sweater, but I want to tell you where I was coming from with all of this. At the time I cast this on, I was, I think it's okay to say, Dennis was in the hospital. He's totally fine, absolutely fine, but there were little moments he was there for about 4 days. And all the knitting projects I had at the time were not at a place where I could deal with them. There's one I needed to make some decisions. You know, it was just a series of things. They just weren't working for me, or the colors were gloomy, even though I'd love to wear them. Anyway, I needed color, and so I think the second morning before I went out, I came out here and looked for some things, and I got a whole basket of my leftover Noro. I talked to you about this, I'm sure, at least once before, but I had many leftover balls of various sizes. Some were bigger, some were tiny, some were big, but it's such precious yarn. It's kind of expensive. It's Noro Silk Garden, and it's made of wool, mohair, and silk, and mostly silk and mohair. And I had a period of time where I absolutely, I do love it still, but I was beside myself over this yarn, and I made many shawls out of it. And so what I ended up doing for this, what I would do when I made the shawls, is sometimes a color would be too dramatic, too bright, or it would be, on the other hand, too dull. And so my little leftovers are all of what I cut out to make it. I had cut them out to make the shawls look nicer, and then I had all these leftovers. So I decided to make this sweater as much as I could out of the Silk Garden. And I mostly did. I had a few other, all the color is Silk Garden, and then there's some other color in here. I have now somehow something has changed here with my camera. But you can see that I have a lot of grays in here, and actually I am changing color like rapidly all through here. But let me just step back a little further so you can see. I did not make the bell sleeves. In fact, I did start decreasing. I kept them straight pretty far down, and then I started decreasing and then made 2x2 rib. And I did the same thing for the bottom. I did add some extra stitches on the side, not too many actually, and this blocks so dramatically that I think it's fine. So I'll end up standing up again, I'm sure, but the other thing I wanted to tell you is that I made a rule to myself that I was going to try to knit this sweater without ripping out, because I have been in a habit of ripping out just way too much. Ripping out when I maybe could fix it on my own. So, or it just isn't that important. You know, I'm ripping out to be perfect, and they're not perfect even after I do rip out. So I just decided for this I wanted to use the bright colors, not rip out as much as possible. And then the other thing was that I had just read Elizabeth Zimmerman's Knitting Without Tears. It was a reread, and I pulled it out because, and took it to the hospital with me, because I wanted to just try and capture some of her very joyful knitting. If you haven't read her, she has this thing she does called unventing, and she is just she's passed away by now, but she was so creative, and was always trying new things. And I am just the opposite. I follow the patterns. I don't experiment very much. And I just wanted, I'm just trying to move that there. I just wanted to have, approach my knitting a little more joyfully. And if you're sitting around in a hospital for very many days, joy is what you are looking for, as you've probably experienced one way or another. Anyway, so I got this on the needles, and I have to say that initially it just flew. It was so much fun. It's, I forget the needle size, but it's about 20 stitches to the inch. It was just zooming along. And of course, whenever I'm doing color, if you're not familiar with Noro Silk Garden anyway, and most, I think, of the Noro colors do change color. So it's this is way before Spin Cycle came along. So the color changes are really nice. But I was looking at what I had and trying to see how they went together. And because I always pick mostly I pick the colors I like. Now I do have, unfortunately, even after doing this, I do still have quite a bit of Noro, a whole basket. It's like right there of, was that it? Yeah, that's it. And it's, I'm not going to knit a sweater for myself because the colors are so many of the warmer tones. There's a lot of golds and browny colors, and but they're really nice. And I was thinking it would be fun to knit or crochet something out of those. But anyway, it's surprising that I could make a whole sweater out of these leftovers with just maybe half a skein of some gray yarn that I had, and maybe a part of a skein of some really dark. But most of the black you're seeing here is Noro. So let me just show you one thing there are a couple things here. One thing that I changed is the I think the original cast on was down around here, and it just felt way too wide. And you can see from the pattern that she has a fairly wide neck, which is lovely, and it always draws me in. And then I start thinking, I have really slopey shoulders, and I don't want them sloping. And I would like, I guess the only thing is I would like a little more coverage back there. But anyway, what I did was I cast on, and I was kind of down this a ways, didn't want to rip out, so I picked up stitches all along here, and then I did quite a bit of knitting. I did some garter stitch. You can't see it because it's so dark, but I did some stockinette stitch in here, and I feel way more comfortable where the neck is now. Now, one thing that I'm a little, you can see I'm fiddling with it. I'm not totally sold on the vertical button band. I think it looks really nice, and I had abandoned so much of this pattern that I wanted to at least incorporate some of the main things. And you can see she's done kind of a stripy vertical band. And mostly it's turned out okay. Like you can see on the bottom, no, you can't. On the bottom here, it seems okay, but up here, it feels kind of raggedy. And I am thinking of getting a crochet hook and just crocheting one more row just to kind of finish up. The other thing is, they're not as, the vertical doesn't seem to be as sturdy to me. And then when I got to the end, and here's a buttonhole, it really stretched out where I had the ribbing. I'm not ripping it out. But so that is one thing. And I did kind of agonize over, should I do a 2x2 rib to match my sleeves and the bottom, or should I do it? And I decided to do it, and I do like the look. It actually is a little better it's more stripy over here, but I was running out of some yarns, so trying to stay within my rules here. But you can see how the colors are very fun, and I think the Silk Garden has kind of, to me, it looks kind of a rustic thing, feel to it, and I think it has to do with the silk, because there's always some little white pieces that are kind of escaping. This middle part here was kind of fun because I didn't want to have the whole sweater striped in this really dramatic way, and so I thought I better switch to some darker colors, and this was just super fun. The designer ends with a garter stitch ending. It's not very, well, yeah, it is. Yeah, I think it starts around here. And so I omitted that. But then I put in, at different places, I put in purl rows, and it was just really absolutely a delight to do. The sleeves were the best sleeve island ever. It was so much fun. And they're not matching, but they're sisters, but not twins, is what so many people say. So they're not totally matching, but they're close enough to make me happy. So, let me see, what else did I do? Okay, let me think. I lost my sheet of paper, which is supposed to remind me. I think that is it. I did the sleeves. I did the, I'm sure I'm going to think of something really profound that I missed, but I think that's mostly it. It's not, I have, my cardigans either tend to be really light or like outerwear, and this one is kind of in between. It's absolutely next to Skin Soft to me. I went on Ravelry and saw that not everybody agrees, but this really does feel soft. And I'm not usually going for soft, but at the time I bought this yarn, I was really totally, it was all about color for me. And I didn't really even know much about the differences of wool and others. And my current self is very happy that my former, less informed self picked at least natural fibers. So that is really good. So it feels very, very comfortable. It may look bulkier than it is, but it's very drapey and a comfortable thing. And it is really nice to have gotten a whole sweater out of leftovers. So let's see, I think there was one more thing. Oh, I wanted to tell you though that even though for me this is the ultimate scrappy cardigan, there are some others that you could find that would even be more agreeable to the scrappiness. I did change the pattern a lot in order to do all my colors. So basically she has all this garter stitch up here and then switches to the stockinette, and so I'm just picking. I was just like, I would just say, oh, I think I'm gonna just stockinette for a little bit, so I do a little stockinette, and then like in here this is all stockinette, and then I do some more, and then I'd go back to the garter, and then I stopped around here and just went mostly stockinette until I started adding in a few little purl rows down here. Oh, and I should say that my 2x2 ribbing at the bottom is twisted rib. Excuse me. Because I like things a little looser around the hips. So if you were looking for some other scrappy possibilities, one is the Garter Marler sweater and the Garter Marler cardigan by Stephen West, which I've looked at many times. And that calls for 2 fingering weights held together. And because the Noro is more of a, well, it's considered worsted to Aran weight, and for me, I got gauge for this sweater, which is intended to be knit with DK yarn. So you know how it is. Yarn is very, it just really depends on the yarn. So I didn't want to do the Garter Marler because I had all this heavier weight yarn. But if you have lots of fingering, that would be a great one. It just looks really fun. And then the other possibility, of course, is the shifty. And also the woolen pine sea glass sweater, where you're holding fingering weight, and it's color work though, and you're knitting one color with with one yarn, and then you knit one stitch, and then you knit another stitch with a different yarn, and it just makes a very almost woven look to me. And then they also have a new one out. Woolen Pine has a new one out, which is color work, all over color work, front and back, except for the sleeves are solid, and that would really use up a lot of leftover yarn if you have it. So anyway, very, very fun. I highly recommend going forth and doing something different. It felt really good to me. I was off pattern way more than I ever do, and it really was satisfying for me. I feel a little apologetic because sometimes I feel like, oh, I should kind of, I know I don't have to do what the designer says, but sometimes I want to have the convey the, and it's not a test knit, so I can do whatever I want, but sometimes you want to kind of acknowledge what, you know, she was doing here. And I changed so much, especially with the sleeves. There's just no way I was gonna be happy with sleeves hanging. I just have a thing about that. So I just feel very happy, and I made these longer. I've noticed a lot of my sleeves aren't long enough, but this time I really, when I stand up, these are really nice and long, and so it feels nice and cozy and good. Okay, I want to tell you just quickly, I have a little whip going, and this is the Alex from the Making Memories book, and it's by Claudia Quintanilla, and this one is one of the it's a very basic sweater. All right, I have to get up and show you. Hang on. You can have a little view of things. Here we go. And this was one, it has a cute little, you know how sweatshirts have that little V in there? Well, she has a nice, very simple top-down sweater that has that. But unfortunately, the yarn I'm using doesn't really show it very clearly. But here's the sweater. That child is so adorable. And you really, it's hard to see even with that picture, but with the right kind of yarn, it might pop more. But what I'm using is, I don't know if you remember, but I mentioned last time that I had my granddaughter help me wind up this yarn, and she said, "What are you making?" And I said, "I'm making a sweater for a little girl who's going to turn 3. And she said, "That's me." So we worked on that, just for future for reference for any grandparents. That might be a little too early because it was a hard job, but she did a great job. And so I have cast on the sweater, and it's just a very plain raglan. And I thought about using the flax pattern because that's a really good basic one. But this one is a DK, and so I didn't have to do math or anything. But it's the yarn is from Kindred Red, and it's their Rad DK, and I think this says Crystalline color, and I got it at Sacred Sheep. So that is just blazing along. I did make one change to the pattern, which is that up to the age 2 sizes, the design has a little button at the back. And I knit another sweater from this book this summer, and I felt like the neck for the size 2 was really wide. And I thought just generally I had met gauge, but the sweater was kind of big. That's why I'm doing a size 2 for a soon-to-be 3-year-old. So I did not do that special button thing, and I just cast on stitches and started doing the ribbing, and it looks fine. You know, this is super wash. It just stretches like crazy, so I think I'll be okay with getting it over her head. And I would like to make something that fits this winter. I have trouble getting these kids sizes. But anyway, that is a fun little thing. So the other thing I want to talk about, I'm kind of speeding along partly because there is an Instagram live that Youthful Fiber Farm is hosting, and because there's a knit along that, and today we were supposed to go, she was having an open mill shop day, and they were gonna do the cast on for the Calliopi sweater that was designed by Espace Tricot. It's a free pattern, as all of theirs are, and I was hoping to go up there and see what everybody else is doing. So I think I'm doing that. I said I am, and I think I am, but I haven't yet found the yarn to do it. So I'll put the link below because my picture didn't come out, but it's basically, it's ribbing that goes down about this far, and then the rest of it, so it's a circular yoke, and then it has some raglan decreases under the yoke, sort of like the ranunculus does, and it looks like a lot of fun, and I'm not very good at doing knit along, so I thought this would be a good opportunity because I'd actually see people in person, and that would be inspirational. So now it's going to be by Instagram, and if I finish this in a timely way, then I can go watch it. Okay, I wanted to talk to you just very briefly about my intentions for the coming year. I hate to say resolutions, and it's just more like what I'm thinking about. And so there are a couple things. One is I would like to do better record keeping. So I actually know how much yarn it takes me to knit a sweater. I am really bad about this. I don't weigh the yarn. I'm not keeping track very well. Even though I used to be very detailed, like I'd write on the pattern and then transfer that information to Ravelry, so I'd have at least, how about things like, the size of the needle I'm using? Oof. I'll tell you, I usually don't have whips that languish for too long, but I mean, that's just terrible. So anyway, I really want to do a little bit better on that score. And I would like to know how much yarn it takes to knit a sweater for me. The other thing is that as I'm looking for yarn to do this knit along for the Calliopi, I've really been aware that even though I really know a lot about my wools, I know where the wools come from. I've evolved to being fairly knowledgeable about what kind of wool am I using. And I'm using more breeds of sheep, and I'm growing in that way. Where I don't know is I have no idea. Now, one of the things that I'm using superwash yarn here, this is 100% superwash merino. I have no clue where that yarn came from. Not a clue. And I suspect that a lot of the people who are doing the beautiful dyeing, because you cannot argue with that. This is gorgeous, gorgeous color. So much fun. You can just see so much color in there. I have no idea where this yarn came from. So it may well have come from China. It's very far away from me. And so that is that. The other thing is for an awful lot of, even though I've been rather precious about where's this wool coming from when I'm knitting, you know, when I'm knitting my, here's Little Farmer's Daughter, and here's, you know, here's my Shetland wool that, you know, and I'm just very aware of all these different wools. I have my wool from Ireland and so forth, but I buy silk merino with not a care in the world. I don't even think about where is that from, and is this a sustainable yarn, and that kind of thing. So my goal is to learn a little bit more about some of these yarns, I know that Knitting for Olive has some very, very lovely yarn, and I did buy some recently in that. It's just gorgeous. But that's the only silk mohair yarn that I have any history of. So I would like to learn more about that and be more mindful about silk mohair. It's almost like, because I didn't know anything about it, it meant that I didn't need to know anything about it. So anyway, I'm hoping to learn a little more. The other thing is, I have found that silk mohair is not all created equal. Most of them seem to be about 75% mohair and 25% silk, roughly. But where is all that coming from? So anyway, that's kind of where I'm headed this year, is to learn more. And I'm looking more for transparency, and the suppliers that can tell me where they got the yarn. I'm going to pay more attention to those people and businesses. So anyway, that's where I'm going. But the last thing I have is I do have a couple of books. I got a number of books Santa Claus brought me. And this one I ordered for myself ages ago. It's called Embroidery on Knits by Judith Gummlitch, and it's published by Lyons. And here is the cover. And this one I ordered from my local yarn store, and it did take forever, but it did get here. And it has, and then I almost went like, do I still want this book? I'm kind of lost my steam, but actually I'm very, very happy that I got it. And I'll show you a few of the pictures in here. So what she does, this is on the cover. Isn't that great? I love that. That's a really nice one. You know, embroidery is like anything. Not every single thing appeals to me, but the ones that do are great. And so what I wanted from this book, though, because you can find how to do the actual embroidery stitches from other sources. There are quite a few books out there, but she talks a lot about knitting on your own knits, or ready-made knitting on ready-made knits. It doesn't have to be your own, but she talks about, like, you know, what yarn or thread to be using, different supplies you might need. She has the whole process of, she uses an embroidery hoop here, and recommends stabilizer, which I haven't quite figured out where to find, if I can find it locally. But I've read most of the, what I really like about this book is there's a lot of content. And sometimes when there's a lot of the books that we get with the patterns, and I just would love more content. So this one is great in that respect. She really does say a lot. If you're interested in putting, doing, birds or all kinds of things, she has that. But let me show you some of the, and she has a whole chapter on silk ribbon embroidery, which is interesting. Doesn't that look interesting to do? And okay, now the one thing that I am really intrigued by is the excuse my band-aid here, but I really love this one right here. That color, the and actually I think that's quite nifty there. So what she does is she does not have knitting patterns for you to do, but she she'll have a sweater like this design that I was admiring. She has the sweater, and then she tells you what knitting pattern. So that's acknowledging Kuru by Yana Haitala is the pattern, and then she tells you how to do the design on it. So that is really nice. And some of these are, so it's a really beautiful book. It was pretty expensive, but it is really beautiful, and I have enjoyed it. And frankly, I don't, there's a lot of things I don't spend money on. Makeup, getting my nails done, dyeing my hair, all these things don't happen. But so it means I get to spend more money on this kind of thing. I have an old car. My car's going to be 20 years old this spring. But look at that. I think that is just really nice. So that is kind of what I've been looking at. And then I should point out that there is, at the back of the book here, there is there are all these designs that you can trace onto stabilizer and then embroider. So really lovely book. I highly recommend it. And I was afraid that I'd get the book and that it wouldn't address what I was really concerned about, but it did. So the book answers my embroidery questions, and I really appreciate it. The other book I got that Santa brought me was the Patty Lyons Knitting Book of Tricks, I think it is. Oh my gosh, is that it? And it's got all kinds of things of problem solving with your knits. And if you listened to me last time, you know that I took a knitting, Vogue knitting, virtual Vogue knitting, the virtual. And I took a class from her, and she was fantastic. So anyway, I am enjoying that book. There's some real treats in there. And then finally, I want to tell you about a book I read that I really enjoyed, and it's light. I also read some darker stuff, but I'm going to just talk about this one this time. It is called The Maid by Nina Prose, and everything will be linked below. But the book is a murder mystery, and the maid, the character, the maid, is somebody that the author never puts a label to her or says anything about what her issues are, but I think when you read it, she tells you, the character tells you straight out that she has difficulty with social communication and sometimes doesn't understand what people are talking about. And I think it would be easy to sum up by saying that she misses a lot of social cues, which makes life very interesting when she finds a hotel guest dead in his bed. I really enjoyed the book. I love the characters, and it's a pretty quick read. So if you're looking for that, it's in paperback now. And I believe she has a new book out called The Mystery Guest, but I'll probably wait until I don't pay full new book price, because now that Christmas is over, we're back to a little more caution in our book purchasing. The library is available. You can get on lists, and there's lots of places too where I can find remaindered books and used books. So anyway, I might not be reading that one quickly, but if I had a really bad day, I could imagine myself just ordering it quick on my Kindle, because it was a very fun and enjoyable read. So, okay, I think that is it for today. It is not the only knitting I'm doing. I also have my Alpine Bloom, which I abandoned to work on this, but I've gotten back to it, and I'm enjoying that again. But the little baby sweater I'd like to finish in the next couple of days, because we're hoping to go up and help her celebrate her 3rd birthday. So I will probably not be showing this to you again, because I don't think I can do it. Hopefully I'll take a picture and put it on Instagram and Ravelry, but cute little sweater. And I've been doing so many cardigans that I'm enjoying doing a pullover for the babies. I did look at my knits last year. I felt like I was knitting all the time, but I realized some things either got abandoned or some things took a lot longer than expected. But I think I did 4 knits for myself and 2 baby cardigans, and then a cardigan for a toddler and a pullover for a toddler. And, I forget what else, a shawl. I'll put my Ravelry if you want to take a look and see. But I feel like it was incredibly light result for all the knitting that happened. I do have a long vest that is a good way finish, but I have to rip out some things. And yeah, I do have some unfinished objects, but not that much. So I think a lot of it is the ripping out issue, that I've just been doing way more of that. Also, agonizing over and thinking too much about what the next project should be. I want to be mindful, but not obsessive. That's one of the goals for the year. I hope you're doing well. It's really cold in here, so I'm going to be happy to turn this off and bundle up and walk back through the snow back to the house. It's not very far, but it is getting cold in here. And if I run the heater's too loud. So when I'm filming, I don't like to do that. Anyway, I hope you're staying warm and that you're enjoying winter. This is our knitting time if you're in the Northern Hemisphere. And I do hope that you'll come back and join me. Thank you so much for coming today. I really appreciate it. Take care and happy knitting.